All right, I'd like to call this special meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Mr. Ballard?
Here.
Ms. Nazaria?
Here.
Ms. Johnson? Mr. Sturgill?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recognition of visitors, seeing none. First hearing of the public, please.
Hello, Barbie Washington, Riverside Drive. I would like to make you aware that we still have not received report cards. Have you guys received any answers? No final report cards for the high schoolers and no updated or corrected report cards for parents in K-8 whose children's report cards were wrong.
Have you heard anything at all about report cards out of yours?
Not at all. I had heard that they were going to address it, but didn't get one way or the other direction-wise.
I don't have any answers on the report cards. I'm just very, very surprised that it's time to go back to school and we still don't have report cards out from last season.
In less than
Last school
2
year.
weeks.
Yes.
My other question, kids that were being denied open enrollment or intra-district transfers. I know Mr. Glorioso had addressed about their specific, and we know that there were others. Has there been any updates or reasoning or?
Well, the only updates I've heard is that they were to have a meeting. I'm not certain if that meeting has ever taken place. You have you heard anything? Anyone?
I've just heard that there was still dissatisfaction, but the kid wanted to go to Lorain High and still was having to attend Amherst, but I don't know officially as a district statement. That was just in a text message that was passed along to me that there's still some family turmoil that they want to come to Lorain City Schools but are being denied, so.
I know that Mr. Glorioso met with LaCambre Brown, and they had a discussion. Nothing has been, they have no conclusion to it yet, but it seems that Mr. Glorioso admitted that he had made a couple of
I'm not
mistakes.
certain if we can talk about individuals specifically, but to answer your question, I have not heard anything further. I know that there's still some intra and out, what did you call the
The open enrollment
open
and
enrollment, yes.
intra-district transfers?
Yes, I know there's still some discussion going on, and I do know the parents that have come to the microphone in the past weeks, but I don't have any update on any specific cases.
Feeding off of that, I saw that there's in post on Facebook about registration. So I wonder where our numbers are. It was just, I think, posted yesterday. Larkmore had just posted that recently. I hadn't seen anything before that. Are our numbers still pretty low?
I have not pulled them this week to know, to even answer that, so it's something I can definitely get for you guys.
But we're going to do a better job because I can anticipate what your next question is going to be at the next meeting. So we're going to have those numbers for you before you get here next time.
Please. Should we
So-
submit our questions ahead of time?
They've been heard.
I think I can start to ask your questions for you. So I think you deserve the answers to your questions. So we will do what we can to have those answers next time. We'll try to pull those numbers prior to the meeting.
Please. The last thing we're hearing that Mrs. Yonkers received a $30,000 raise. Is that true? Mrs. Yonkers is a chief of people,
Okay.
received a $30,000 raise.
I don't know that
I heard
specific.
the same thing.
Okay.
So did I.
Mr. through the chair to Mr. Hill.
Oh, now you want to follow Robert's rules.
I mean, who's Robert anyway? Bob. Is that true?
There was an increase, I'm not sure I don't want to speak to exactly how much, but yeah, there was an increase.
Close, ballpark, double figures?
I think that should be public knowledge, so if you were to make a
Amen.
records request for that, maybe someone can answer your question specifically, but we've not done any research to answer that question. I've not done the research to answer it today.
I still have public records requests from April and May that have not been answered.
Is that public information?
Yes?
It is public information.
Salary,
So then why can't we answer the question?
we can, it's, the most recent one, because it's on the current, was it on the last Monday's approval? I just don't want to speak out of turn if it hasn't formally been approved yet. That's what I want to double check on.
It's not on the July 22nd agenda, if that's what you're,
Then it hasn't been formally approved yet.
okay. Are there other chiefs that are looking to get significant raises as well?
Not that I'm aware of.
So just to make everyone aware, this is the same person that I spoke about at the last meeting, who was out several months, I want to say 4, who's been allowed to work from home. We have 2 new positions in HR, and for some reason, she deserves a $30,000 raise. And there are no funds to help children with uniforms. We have to do better.
Point's taken. Thank you. Any further hearing from the public? Is there anyone, and I'll only say, because we will be going into executive session, so if there's anything else that needs to be heard, you may want to speak now. Seeing none. Approval of the minutes from our August 1st emergency meeting.
Motion to approve minutes. from the
Second.
last meeting.
Motion approved. Roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Ms. Nazaria?
Yes.
Moving down to number 7, I need a motion to suspend the order so we can go into an executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Ms. Nazaria?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do we need to specify what we're going for?
Yeah.
Yes.
A2, employment.
A2.
Motion to
And
go into executive session for A2?
Employment, under employment.
Support.
and C.
And what would be the additional?
That would be 121.22 of the revised code, section G1, regarding appointment and employment matters of employees, and subsection G3, pending imminent litigation. Those would be the 2
Separately,
specific
A2
reasons.
and C.
A2 and C.
Motion?
Support.
Roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes,
Ms. Nazaria?
Yes.
we will be back, and I'm not certain if we'll be making any other further votes coming out. Need a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Ms. Nazaria?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Next item is recommendations of the treasurer.
I have none.
Having none, nothing from the CEO. Anything on new business? So of course, everyone has heard the, as we've been kind of encountered this situation with our treasurer being offered a position in one of our neighboring districts. And of course, some of us have a different mindset, and I'm of the mindset that our treasurer does have a valid, I'm sorry, I'm of the notion that we have a contract that's in place with our treasurer, and just wanted to kind of bring it up for a discussion on what our next steps would be. What's your pleasure as a board?
I'll go first. I think the treasurer, well, I think the treasurer is, first, it's an asset to our district. And this is a critical time period in which it creates great difficulty in replacing a treasurer. So with the current treasurer being under contract, and there is a quote-unquote, I guess, July 10th rule that indicates that an administrator or an employee cannot leave the district after that date without being released from the contract. It would make no sense for us or anyone to release a treasurer from a contract who's a very competent treasurer, who's been very effective in his work, and of our administrators is probably the most trusted administrator in the district. And so to not have an opportunity to replace that, I think we as a board have to protect the assets of the district. And that's why we create contracts. And so I think that the spirit, the intent of Mr. Hill, because he's always been an upstanding person, when he signed the contract, was to honor the contract. And so I don't see how we could do our duty and allow that. Again, yeah, so I mean, we could not replace him in a short order. It would be very difficult. We're at the last minute, school starts in 2 weeks, and we're looking at all the other transitions. As we discussed, the impact this could have on our levy, the absence of accountability, when we're asking community for continued support and more resources, or continued support at the current level, I think it just doesn't make good sense right now. And the fact that another district would even approach this, if our superintendent was leaving 3 days before school, we'd be outraged. I mean, it's unthinkable. So I think at this stage of the game, it just compromises the district, the integrity of the district greatly, to lose a treasurer right now.
I would say that Josh gives us the checks and the balance that we have between the CEO and the spending of the money. With him gone, and we don't know who is going to fill his spot, and only he leaves the 19th and school starts the 21st, that makes me nervous as to who is going to spend the money and how our money will be spent.
I really don't have much to add. I think it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate timing, but I think everybody should have a Josh Hill, and I just wish I wish things were different, but I think we need to know who has the rights here to keep him. I would wish that he honors his contract, and I hope his contract ends up being with us. So that's all.
So like I said, with all respect, all the respect that we do have for Mr. Hill, I do think him departing at this time would cause harm to our district and to our levy issues and all the things that are going on with House Bill 70 and all the other intended consequences with our records request and how we communicate with the business of the district are all those things that we've learned to entrust in Mr. Hill. And I'm of the belief that we have a contract that is valid, and I intend to have that contract honored at this point would be mine. So I've had some of these discussions, of course, with legal, and I've been bouncing this off of them for the last week or so. And so I've had them kind of do some background check to get us some options on what how they would lead us or what our options could possibly be. So I'm going to ask them to share what some of those options that we may have. Please.
Through the chair, I think that discussing exactly what might be the legal bases for pursuing what has been discussed as the board's goal, that is to determine the enforceability of the contract that the board has with your treasurer, are things best left said between client and counsel. So I think at this point in time, with all due respect, I'm going to not get into detail about what it is that the action may be that the board takes.
Okay.
And the reasons for that. What I would ask the court to consider, because I don't know what your vote's going to be or what the motion's going to be per se, but what I would ask the board to consider is authorizing us as your counsel to explore all of your rights and obligations as it regards the contractual relationship between the board and the treasurer, and to take whatever action is appropriate based upon the law and based upon the provisions of that contract to protect the district. So I think best left at this point, Mr. President, would be for the board to consider what its position is, to have an appropriate motion placed on the board's table and for action to be taken on that motion.
Need a motion to authorize our legal counsel to do to do all things that it takes to protect our district to the extent of the law, and keeping our treasurer and enforcing the contract that is in place. Need a motion for that, please.
I would suggest, because I know that our counsel was drafting some language so that it has clarity. Could you possibly read that language?
Would that be before the motion, or would that be in the discussion?
That would be in the motion.
Okay. Please.
Chair, to Mr. Williams, if you'd like me to read it, and I'll take it as your motion.
Please.
The Secretary can take it as your motion. The motion would read to authorize counsel for the Lorain City School Board of Education to employ whatever legal action which is permissible under the law, necessary and reasonable to enforce the contract for the employment of the treasurer, Joshua Hill, and the Lorain City Schools, and to otherwise protect the rights of the Lorain City School Board of Education to assert its authority regarding the position of treasurer in the Lorain City School District.
I so move.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Ms. Mazzarri?
Yes.
Is there anything further in new business? Hearing none, we have the second hearing of the public.
It was just brought to my attention that Mr. Hardy is refusing to pay the principals and deans for the early July 22nd start date. Their contract start date is August 1st, but they were made to begin July 22nd. Does anyone know anything about that?
I don't know. I haven't gotten the text that you've got. It's the first I've heard of it, but I'm certain if he's requiring them to work, they get paid for the work that they do, correct?
Well, yeah, by law, if they're working, they have to be
They have to
paid for
get
their
paid.
time.
Mhm.
I think the differential or the struggle is currently, because I was aware of the front end of this, I don't know where it's at in discussions at this point. Their contract, the current contract year, it's not about them not being paid, it's about their increase that's effective August 1st. And I think they're wondering, due to the fact that they're starting earlier, that increase should start earlier. And my position was, I don't have the authority to start it any earlier than what the contract states. So I think that's maybe the differential. They're going to be paid, because they're stretch paid anyway, so they're paid year-round. There's not going to be a lapse in when they're being paid. So it'd be their work days. They're going to be paid for accordingly, because there's a certain number of work days they have within their contract. So they will be paid for those, but I think really the differential is when that increase happens, because they have an increase in the third year of their contract.
Okay. And then the second thing I wanted to maybe make you aware of or ask if you had any additional information. There is a teacher who has taught in the classroom for 2 years and that has been promoted to a dean, doubled her salary. She still is required to have a teacher mentor, but now she is a dean who is overseeing teachers. How and why?
House Bill 70. House Bill 70. It's the how. I don't know the why.
I understand, right? Maybe that's an easy answer, but like this is Mr. Hardy for our district,
Yes.
who is responsible. He is allowing his people to make these decisions. Like, House Bill 70, is awful, but you don't have to, like, purposely ruin our district. There are other people with experience, with, proper license, with, just that would be better for our kids and for our teachers, that would put us in a better position to reach our goals to get out of this mess.
I think the question I would like to ask is, this teacher or dean, do they make evaluations? I mean, are they evaluating people?
That's what deans do.
I think you should ask that question to the Ohio Department of Education. I mean, with 2 years, it doesn't seem reasonable that you have the type of experience to be doing evaluations yet.
Or the experience to help maybe a teacher who has questions or that might be struggling. Maybe it's another young teacher. If you're only, in a classroom for 2 years, how do you have that experience?
Yeah, that'd be a great question. I don't have the answer, but maybe at a town hall meeting or ADC meeting, we should probably revisit that because they're the ones with those answers.
Is there any town hall or ADC meeting scheduled? There's nothing on the district calendar.
Yes. I will be talking to them on tomorrow and see if I can get a next, well, do you have anything with ADC?
I think there'll be an ADC meeting coming up the 27th of August.
Thank you for that.
I believe, but
And the town hall should start back up, I would assume, once the school year starts. I think the only reason they stopped doing them was the summer, I think.
Okay. Last, I will say that there is a Lorain High School volleyball alumni game at 6 p.m. Proceeds go to the Blessing House. It costs $4. Don't use your cards or your passes to get in, so the Blessing House can get those benefits from us.
Did you just call us cheap?
I called you cute.
Anything further from the public? So our next meeting will be scheduled for
Next Tuesday,
5 o'clock,
the 13th.
the
5
13th,
o'clock.
right here. Need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Support?
Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes,
Ms. Nazaria?
Yes.
meeting adjourned.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.